Hey boys and girls, I'm going to go ahead and do the second video that finishes up chapter 6, and then I will figure out how we're going to take some sort of grade on this book since you don't have it at home with you to be able to refer back to it. Okay? Alright, so when we left off in the previous video, the strangers that helped her on the street, remember, somehow got her to the Windsor Hotel, and that's where her Aunt Maggie works, right? So hopefully your predictions, were something such as she's going to finally make it home, or, something, we don't have any reason to think that she's not going to make it home. I think she feels better, hopefully finding a family member, right, versus the strangers on the street. So let's see how it turns out. My kitty cat's here. Y'all want to see my cat? Come here. Come here. Come here. Come here, Mopsy. Alright, so this is Mopsy. Say hey. Say hey, boys and girls. And Izzy, she's jealous. If you can't see Izzy, Izzy's right here on the floor. She wants y'all to see her. Let me move this pillow. Say hey. Yes, see, they're friends. Look, they're friends. Yes, but Izzy gets very jealous when I'm holding the cat. See, look at him. Alright. Alright, so let's get back started on finishing the book. Let's see how long Mopsy sits here. You think she'll sit here while I read? Let's try it out. It says, the man's eyes softened. Suddenly, he wasn't stiff and forbidden anymore. He took Katie by the hand and led her through the long back passageways. One flight up, they came across a chambermaid carrying an armful up. She's done sitting. She's going to go find her mouse to play with. It's a fake mouse, of course. One flight up, they came across a chambermaid carrying an armful of towels. The maid wore a white apron over a gray dress and a little lace cap on her head. Can you find Maggie Murphy for this little lass? The man asked. Maggie is her auntie, and she needs her help. Some more stairs, more long carpeted hallways, and then Aunt Maggie was there in her same kind of gray dress and lace cap on her auburn hair. Katie flew into her arms. Now, flew into her arms. Does that mean she grew wings and flew to her aunt? Of course not. Okay, that's an idiom. Remember, idioms are expressions that cannot be taken literally. So that just means that she ran into her aunt's arms. And now the tears really came like a dam given away. Katie, who never cried. Katie, Mama's dependable Kate, crying all over Aunt Maggie's apron until she could hardly cry anymore. And the words came too, between sobs, spilling out in bits and pieces, about Mama's illness, about the brooch, about Papa being away, and about the long trip through the snow. You foolish child, Aunt Maggie scolded, stroking Katie's hair. What a chance you took. No brooch in the world is worth taking chances like that. And then she smiled. But you are safe, she said, and that's all that counts. Now we'll just have to find a way to get both of us safely uptown. But Papa, what about Papa? Katie asked. Now that she herself was warm and safe, she couldn't bear to think of Papa still out in the storm. Your dad is smart. He knows how to take care of himself, Aunt Maggie laughed. Once again, Katie could feel the warmth spreading through her body. She felt drowsy and content. Drowsy or sleepy, right? Everything was all right. She didn't need to worry anymore. Aunt Maggie would take care of everything. She'd take care of Katie and Mama too. Aunt Maggie would know how to manage. Katie was so sure about Aunt Maggie that she wasn't even surprised when Aunt Maggie returned with the news that she'd found a way to get home. One of the gentlemen on my floor, she explained, has a sleigh waiting outside. He's taking some of his friends to their homes, but he promised to squeeze us in. He's a nice man, Mr. Heatherton is. Aunt Maggie bustled about. She took off her apron and cap, put on her coat and hat. Now just a word to the housekeeper, she said, and then we're off. But what if the housekeeper won't let you off? Katie worried. Now don't you worry, my love, Aunt Maggie said. If she says no, I'll go anyway. Nothing would make me stay with my own sister so sick and her little ones needing help. There are other jobs. It was still snowing, but the storm had let up a little when they got outside. The sleigh was waiting. The horses were covered with warm blankets. Aunt Maggie climbed on the driver's seat next to the coachman. But Mr. Heatherton made Katy sit inside the sleigh with him and his friends. He wrapped Katy into a warm lap robe so that nothing showed but her eyes and the tip of her nose. Even the sleigh horses had a hard time moving through the deep snow. They stopped and strained, and they had to rest every few blocks, but Katy was too weary to care. All right, so weary means tired. So, when you add a word to your vocabulary, you start using it, right? So let's challenge yourself. Instead of using the word, Mom, I'm tired, can I go to bed? How about, Mom, I'm feeling weary, can I go to bed, right? Mom would think that's cool. All right, let's continue. She watched the big houses and street lamps of Fifth Avenue moving past. She listened to the tinkling of the sleigh bells. She looked up at the trees along Central Park. Some were half down or had lost some of their branches to the storm, but their dark outlines still looked pretty against all that white snow. Katy wished she could forget her worries and for a moment and pretend that this was just another outing in a sleigh, but she'd never had a sleigh ride like this before. How the twins would enjoy gliding along this in splendor. She must remember every detail. I lost my place. She must remember every detail for them. The sleek horses, the furry lap robe, the stately coachman with its towering high hat. They stopped at several houses to drop Mr. Heatherton's friends off. At 79th Street, Mr. Heatherton got off too. William will take you and the child home, he told Aunt Maggie. Oh, but we can manage from here, sir, Aunt Maggie protested. Nonsense, Mr. Heatherton said. I have daughters myself. I wouldn't want them trudging about in this storm. He patted Katy on the back. You take care of yourself, little one, he said. They turned east. The sleigh crossed the bridge over the open railroad, cut on 4th Avenue. The deep trench was half filled with snow. It would be a while before trains could pass here. Once again, Katy thought of Papa. She wondered if he was safe. How would he get home? She hoped he wasn't cold and hungry. 3rd Avenue, 2nd Avenue, and they were home. How do you think she feels, boys and girls? Super happy, right? Across the street, the snow drifts were piled so high they almost reached the 2nd-story windows. But her own side was almost clear. The coachman carried Katy into the house. Aunt Maggie was close behind, her skirt trailing in the snow. Aunt Maggie helped Katy up the stairs. Katy's fingers and toes had started to hurt again, a dull, throbbing ache. Katy and Aunt Maggie pounded on the door. It was Michael who flung it open. Kevin was right behind him. The Rileys were there, and Mama propped up in bed. Katy, you're safe, thank God, she cried. She still sounded awfully weak, but she clasped Katy's hand in her own so tightly it felt as if she'd never let go. And then Katy gave Mama the brooch. She tried to pin it on Mama's nightgown, but her fingers were too stiff and sore. Aunt Maggie had to help. Mama kept touching the brooch, her eyes shining, and then Aunt Maggie took charge. She helped Katy undress, as if Katy were no older than Kevin and Michael. She rubbed Katy's throbbing fingers and toes and gently bathed them in lukewarm water. She tucked Katy into Papa's side of the bed next to Mama. My two patients, Aunt Maggie laughed. And then she got busy again, scrubbing the twins, fixing dinner, freshening Mama's sheets and blankets, and tidying all the rooms. Tidying or cleaning, right? In the meantime, everyone talked and talked until Katy was nearly hoarse. Over and over, Katy had to tell her ride on the L, about climbing down the ladder, about fighting the wind and the snow. Time to go to sleep, Aunt Maggie said firmly. Tomorrow is another day. She tucked Katy tightly under her covers. She turned down the kerosene lamp and went to close the curtains. It's still snowing, she said. Warm in bed, Katy felt snug and happy. It felt good and cozy to be safe when the winds howled outside. She wished she could be sure that Papa was safe too. Mr. Riley had assured her again that trained men knew what to do in a storm. Yes, Katy thought, Papa was smart. He'd do the right thing, and he'd be home as soon as the storm was over. And then they talk about their adventures about being out in the bad storm, the worst storm ever in New York City. In the dark, she remembered her own day. It had been hard and scary, but she'd done what she set out to do, but only because people had helped her. So many kind and nice people, the boy at the ladder, Mr. and Miss Lemon in the pawn shop, a friendly couple on the street, Mr. Heatherton and his sleigh, and of course Aunt Maggie. With a sigh, Katy closed her eyes. She could sleep now because Aunt Maggie was here. Katy turned over and snuggled deeper under her covers. Perhaps the storm would let up by morning. With Aunt Maggie here to take care of Mama, maybe she and the twins could have fun in the snow. The end. All right, so I'm going to cut the video off, but I will figure out a way for you to, tell me something about the book to assess you. But just think about, the lesson that Katy may have learned or the lesson that you could learn. Because remember, we've talked about how, we know folk tales and fables teach lessons for the most part. However, realistic fiction books and historical fiction books such as this one can teach a lesson too. We know this story, Katy, the part about Katy is not based on anything real, but it's just, considered historical fiction because it's based on a real event, the blizzard of 1888. But we'll talk more about that later. All right, you have a good day. Find something fun to do after you get all your work done, okay? Make the best of it. Talk to you soon.